Welcome back to Silverstone. We've just taken a look at the cars in the GT Championship, and I'm now going to show you the major difference between a touring car and the road car it's based on. That's how you get in. And voila! Very simple, very straightforward. I'm not going to let you watch me get out. Now, in all seriousness, super touring cars are very, very different from their road car roots. The body shell retains the same shape, but it's got highly advanced aerodynamics, big wings on the front and on the rear. It's got this sequential gearbox, which is very unlike anything you'll find in a road car. And if you thought the brakes on the GT cars were big, well, these cars have got brakes that are just as large, and they've only got 300 horsepower. They've got fantastic grip and handling that no road car driver could possibly imagine. Nissan driver Matt Neal knows everything there is to know about British super touring racing. For the European Championship, well, that's an entirely different matter.
A month ago, Matt Neal was expecting to race for Peugeot in the British Touring Car Championship, but the deal with the French manufacturer fell through at the last minute. He didn't curse his luck for long though. He'd soon put together a plan to compete in the FIA European Super Touring Car Championship. He made his debut at round 3 in Magny-Cours, and he's really enjoying the international flavour of the new competition.
We're in our box, as the Italians call it, the garage, and we've got Italians on one side of us, Germans on the other side, then Russians, then French team, and we walk down the back of the garages and get this deluge of different languages, and it was really good. It was neat.
Neal was immediately on the pace in France, despite having no prior experience of the track, qualifying 4th quickest in wet conditions. He was pushed off at the first corner in race 1, but bounced straight back to take 4th in race 2, despite starting from the pit lane.
Jumping back in the Nissan Primera, it is a beautiful car, and it spoils you as a driver. It really complements you, and with the super touring cars, it's great. And even though I've been driving other race cars which have got very good brakes, this thing is just incredible. And even at the end of the weekend, when the car was running really well, I was still trying to get my head around how late you can brake and how hard you can push the pedal.
Round 4 is of course at Silverstone, and as Neal knows the circuit better than most of his rivals, he's clearly hoping to make the most of his advantage.
Great, we're on home territory. The Italian said, "How far is this from you?" And I said, "It's an hour away from home," so it's easy here. It's a very wide open circuit, and therefore there's a lot of different lines you can take through the corners, and you have to experiment and find the grip.
Well, Neal found the grip he was looking for yesterday. He posted the 2nd fastest time in the morning's first practice session, but in qualifying he couldn't find the space to get in a proper flying lap and had to settle for 4th place on the grid. Still, he remains as upbeat as ever and is desperate to try and sort out a contract so he can compete in the rest of the Super Racing weekend events.
I'm contracted at the moment to do Magny-Cours, Silverstone and Zolder, which is next week. And I love it. I want to stay in it. I really, I love the BTC and I love racing there and everything, but because everything's so new here, the circuits are new, Silverstone isn't, but the drivers are new, the teams are new. I don't know. It's into the unknown, and it's exciting from that aspect.
And with the sponsors' tents full to the brim at sunny Silverstone this afternoon, Neal won't have a better opportunity to impress them to try and secure a deal that can prolong his European adventure.
Deep in the heart of Northamptonshire, Silverstone, the home of the British Grand Prix, and this weekend the home of Eurosport's 4th Super Racing Weekend. Good afternoon, welcome along. Have you managed to drag yourself in from the sunshine wherever you are across Britain? And if the weather's nice in Europe, welcome along as well. Well, this is the programme we have lined up for you for this afternoon. We're going to take a look at this morning's Euro STC first race. Then we will join the cars on the grid live for race 2. We'll take in the super production race live, and then to highlight the finale of our programme, we have the best of the action from the FIA GTs. In this Silverstone circuit, the 5.1 kilometres, 2.5 miles, former airfield, has been the home of the British Grand Prix, not entirely, but largely since the 1950s, and is currently where Formula 1 cars do their stuff in the UK. And it's also a great chance for the British drivers, of course, to try and shine at home. Eurosport's Super Racing weekends continue with the first decent weather of the year. And Silverstone, well, they laughed at me, David Leslie, when I said in France the weather would be beautiful. They're laughing on the other side of their sunburnt faces here, aren't they?
They are. The weather is absolutely wonderful. The sun has shone all day, all weekend in actual fact. We were here on Friday for the watching them doing the general testing all day Saturday when they were qualifying, and here, what a wonderful day to go racing.
Well, this is the first of the Super Touring races. As you can see, Nicola Larini in the Alfa Romeo leading the championship, but Larini failed to qualify, as you'll have seen in yesterday's programme, because he had a gearbox problem with his Alfa. They thought they'd rectified it. He went out but failed to make it. It's his teammate who's on the front row of the grid, sandwiched between the two Hondas, Tarquini ahead of Valfish. Matt Neal, the British privateer, joining in on row 2 ahead of Sandro Sardelli in the other Nissan. And way down the order is Nicola Larini. He was allowed to qualify himself in the morning warm-up on Sunday, which means he can make the race from the back of the grid instead of from the pit lane. But he's not actually stone last because 2 other cars had problems and will be on the grid behind him. They had engine changes. One of them was the Audi driver Roberto Colciaggio. And in fact, Colciaggio and the other car that had hoped to change its engine, Gianluca Roda, failed to make the grid. And so as Tarquini led them away to the first corner, it was him out front, teammate Valfish, angling for a move ahead of Giovanardi. But further back, you can see there the number 2 car of Nicola Larini, and already 3 or 4 places further up the order than when the lights had turned to green. Now, Gabriele Tarquini fast in qualifying. David unusually taking the decision to take a second set of new tyres for a second qualifying run to guarantee himself pole. I think he feels even this early in the season he's really got to hit a winning streak fast.
He has. He was expecting to win long before now, and he's had a non-finish every race meeting so far. So he needs to get rid of that, and he needs to have a double win here this weekend. You can see he got that pole position, and he made a very good start of flying. You can see the end of the first lap is there. Already got a 2-second lead over Giovanardi, and he's stretching that lead away at the moment. Matt Neal's managed there to get up ahead of Valfish, and he's into 3rd place. So the Hondas are doing well 1st and 4th.
Well, a good start from Matt Neal. He was hoping to be right on the pace of Tarquini, Giovanardi and Larini, but has found that the Nissan was lacking perhaps just a 10th or 2 as it came down to the final shakeout in qualifying. Now, Larini obviously on his way through the field, dispensing with the white Alfa there, ostensibly an identical car run by the Conrero team. Number 10 machine there in that instance, Enrico Toccacello providing little in the way of resistance as Larini picked up 6th place. For Tarquini, 5 laps in, 3 seconds up the road from Giovanardi, and Gio had absolutely nothing to say about that. So Larini continuing to race through the midfield, through the privateers, up to the sharp end of the grid. But still the top 3, well, pretty much strung out. Matt Neal able to drive away from Fabrice Valfish and keep a little margin, but unable to do much about Giovanardi. And Giovanardi, I think, David, perhaps even early on, sensing that there was very little that they'd be able to do about Tarquini, except perhaps pray that he had another tangle in traffic in race 2.
Yeah, they've been lucky so far this year that Tarquini has had those tangles, and they've been able to pick up all the points, which is why they're 1st and 2nd in the championship. But yes, he's realised very quickly he's not going to do anything with him here at Silverstone. And Tarquini, you see there, just pulling away all the time. Giovanardi in 2nd, and that's where they finished. Good points for Giovanardi. He's still racking those points up.
Well, he pulls in a little bit of the lead that his teammate Nicola Larini has out front, but a win at Silverstone for the Asport Honda team. And of course, this Honda car designed and built originally in Britain for British touring car racing, and the British tracks, very much like Silverstone, generally fairly smooth, and this is the kind of terrain where it works best. The bumpy stuff it's not quite so keen on. So victory in the first race then for Tarquini ahead of Giovanardi. Matt Neal's car, also a regular British touring car runner right up until the end of last season, when that car was in fact almost destroyed in its final race. Now rebuilt and on the podium in race 1.
I think my big gap starting from my good start. I took 2-second advantage on the first lap. I drove very fast without any mistake. And apart of that, I think the performance of Alfa was very close to my car. And he tried to catch me, I tried to answer in lap time, and I just controlled in the last 3 or 4 laps.
Tarquini then on top in race 1, and with the temperatures still climbing and set fair, it sounds as though there may well be a chance for Tarquini to continue his domination. Larini still leading the championship, but again, Gabriele finding himself back in the top half dozen. a position where he was after race 1 at Magny-Cours, and after retiring from race 2, he dropped out of the top half dozen once more. But it's still all about the Alphas in the Super Touring Championship in terms of points. Tarquini proving, however, that on his day he's as fast as anyone else. If he can keep his nose clean in race 2, he may be able to make more inroads into those Alpha advantages. Chocks away, chaps. Welcome back to Silverstone for the start of the FIA Euro STC Race 2. Round 4 of Eurosport's Super Racing Weekends, bringing out the punters and the sunshine in equal measures. Well, let's go down onto the grid and catch up with Gabriele Tarquini.
Morning, especially in terms of the championship. We didn't see very much overtaking this morning. How important is it to get another good start and get ahead of your rivals?
Well, I think that the start is much more important in the first race than in the second race, because if you've seen, I'm on the back of the grid, so I must pay attention just in the front, be concentrating to the move, and yeah, it's all. But will be very different from my first start.
Thank you, Gabriele.
So Gabriele Tarquini then with plenty of work to do, and well, let's hope he can wake up some of the fans who are sunbathing here around the circuit and still showing their allegiances to Britain's Grand Prix favourites, David Hill, Nigel Mansell and all the rest of them. And there's the B-Bosch mascot, and the award undoubtedly to be presented to Gabriele Tarquini this time for the most enjoyable performance of last weekend, which was at Magny-Cours. Well, Gabriele looking for another good start here, and as you said, very different when they have to fight their way up from the back of the field, David. It's a pretty tough job for these guys.
It is. It's very difficult. Long circuit, 10 laps to do it in. I'm sure they can do it every time this season so far. They managed to do it in about 2 or 3 laps. The circuit, again, being the length it is, I think they'll be able to do something similar. So I don't think it'll take very long. I think the first 2 or 3 laps will be very hectic, very exciting.
You're starting here,
and you'll see the guys at the back who are Gabriele Tarquini to the front.
What will your tactics be for this race?
I try to start as well as possible, and I do my race. I don't want to speculate the other drivers that are faster than me, and I hope to do a good race.
Thank you.
Insight there from Paolo Zadra on the second row of the grid, and he of course was third from last in the first race, you will understand from that. And there is an Alfa Romeo on pole position, and that is the number 3 Alfa. That is Romana Bernardoni, who we saw cartwheeling so spectacularly at Magny-Cours. She starts on the front of the grid with the number 12 machine alongside her. That's Sergio Sambataro in his racing box run Audi Quattro. Paolo Zadra starts in 3rd place on the grid. Angelo Lancialotti in 4th in the number 9 Conrera Alfa. 5th, Eric Cairol. 6th, Mirko Lempänen, the Finn, in his Audi. Eric Cairol in a BMW. 7th, Roberto Toccacello. 8th, Gianluca De Lorenzi. 9th, Sandro Sardelli in the Nissan. 10th place, and the best of the front runners, if you like. On the grid on the outside of row 5, Nicola Larini. Behind him, on row 6 of the grid, Valfish and Neal. And on the final and 7th row of the grid, or 7th and final perhaps, Giovanardi and Tarquini. So Gabriele Tarquini starting stone last, but not starting from the pit lane, which is a little bit of a bonus for him, because he has had a couple of those this year already. And he'll be very glad to actually be on the grid. And with the other 5 or 6 front runners now, we've got serious front runners trying to work his way up through the grid to overtake in the end this lady, or perhaps earlier on than the end of the race, this lady, Romana Bernardoni. Bernardoni coming to Silverstone for the first time, went out on a motorcycle around the track on Thursday to try and learn some of its secrets, and as we saw from qualifying, managing to completely abort a couple of other drivers' laps, so some of them still remaining secret from her. The number 3 Nord Auto Alfa Romeo, though, will start from the front of the grid. Now the grid is being cleared, so we've had the final 3-minute countdown sequence starting. So it's time for the spectators to leave the ice cream van and to head back. And British Eurosport viewers, hopefully you've now got a little bit more insight on, well, some of the differences between these cars and the road cars, courtesy of our preview programme on British Eurosport. Matt Neal giving us his ideas about the championship, and as you can gather from that, he's very keen indeed to stay with the Super Racing Weekends if he can. Matt Neal will be appearing again at Zolder in Belgium, which is next weekend, not the normal fortnight gap between race weekends. And that then is the end of his projected arrival in or projected presence in the championship. But he and Father Steve, who together run the Microdynamics team, the Team Dynamics car, will be doing their level best to find the money to continue in the championship when it resumes later in the summer at the Hungaroring. Let's hope that gentleman is fully tuned in. A little nod off in the sunshine there, David. A very, very demanding prospect, sitting here and watching 5 or 6 hours worth of racing in these conditions. Luckily, he's got a long sleeve shirt on.
I think it'd be wonderful, in actual fact, if you're just sitting out there in the sunshine and taking it all in and not worrying about what's going on around you. The people that do have to do the worrying is obviously the drivers sitting in the cars. They're going to be getting very hot inside these cars, and I'm sure they'll be getting very tense. That's the green flag for the start of the warm-up lap, so they're now setting off to give their tyres the last chance to get some heat into them before they come back, and they'll line up again on the start line for standing start race. So here we go. You see them weaving around now, starting to get that heat into the tyres, so that when they set off and arrive at the first corner, they all go around with a good piece of grip and be able to get round the first corner. The reason I say that is because at Silverstone here, when you get to the first corner at Copse, there's always somebody who falls off. We've seen that in the races yesterday here with the Formula Renault race. So
quite a few times, yes. And those of you who are eagerly awaiting the FIA GTs, do you think a whole GT field managed to get through in bright, broad daylight through the first corner? Well, you'll have to wait and find out, won't you? We've seen the FIA GT race, and we'll be bringing you the highlights of that, just to remind you, at the end of our programme. So sort of a little bit of about-face view of proceedings. We normally start off our Super Racing Weekend race day coverage with those races, but in this instance it's at the back end because of our other scheduling. Now, just to try and encourage a few emails before my computer finally dies again, I've just about managed to get the laptop working here today, and to answer the question, we've got one in from Alan Jenkins in Newport saying surely Larini would have done 3 qualification laps in 3 practice. The fact that he didn't do them in time practice is irrelevant, or are Yellow Book rules different to the Blue Book rules? Yes, indeed, they obviously are, because Larini's pre-practice times don't count for anything. You actually have to qualify yourself, as the word suggests, in qualifying, and he didn't. And we had similar oopses in a number of other cars, not least the Lister Storm. If you want to send us some emails, incidentally, it is thecarguys, all one word, at eurosport.com. And if you are the manufacturer of rather more reliable laptops than the one I've got, then you can email me and I will send you an address for which you can send me one. Because we would like to try and keep this going throughout the season to answer some of your queries and questions. Hopefully we will be able to do that and shed a little bit of light on some of the stuff that we perhaps take a little bit for granted and haven't explained fully. And again, hopefully that preview programme that you'll have just seen on British Eurosport will have, from the drivers and team side, helped to point out a few of the hidden secrets around the Super Racing Weekend paddocks. So Romana Bernardoni then in her red and white machine, rather handily, with Sergio Sambataro in another red and white machine, coming up to the front row of the grid. So my eyes will be taxed on our little 3-inch monitor to try and work out which that one is. I might have to get David to train his binoculars out of the window and see if that can work. Incidentally, if you do want to follow the live timings, if you've got your laptop plugged in, you can do it at eurosport.com, follow the live links, and you should get live timing and scoring as well. Cars on the grid then ready for the start of race 2 here at Silverstone, the Euro STC's 8th race of the season. And so far it's been pretty even in terms of victories between the Alfa Romeo drivers and Gabriele Tarquini. They've split it 3 ways. Are we going to see another winner? Or are we going to see the traditional speed of the fastest cars bring them from the back of the grid through to the front? Well, away they go, and Sergio Sambatore's Audi gets the best of the start from the front row men, but it's Eric Cairol in the BMW who heads around the outside, takes the lead as they go into Copse for the first time. Sambataro in second, and Romana Bernardoni, well, dropping right down the order, and the fast guys at the back have already swept through the pack. Let's see, there is Tarquini, and he's already, that must be a dozen cars from the back, surely then that might well be Fabrice Valfish even, but knowing Gabriele Tarquini's penchant for winning races at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised at all to find it is the Italian. And I think that's a 5 rather than a 4. So I think what you're looking at there is probably Fabrice Valfish ahead of Fabrizio Giovanardi. But the red car on the left-hand side looks very much like a Nord Auto Alfa Romeo to me. And that, I would think, is Nicola Larini. It is into third place by Stowe, with Matt Neal right behind him in that, or was that Sambataro's Audi being dispensed with? We're going to have to get a close-up shot. It's still K-Roll that leads. Conrero Alfa in second place, must be Toccacello. Then Larini, Matt Neal sideways. He's got hit by the Audi. The Audis are big tanks and they can do that sort of stuff. Poor old Matt off, and all of his first couple of corners worth of effort from his tyres, David, to naught. Is that Tarquini at the back or Valfish? I think it's Valfish.
Valfish at the back, and Tarquini's going up through there, but Larini made a fantastic start. He's right up there into third place. But right up there with him was Matt Neal until the Audi decided to hit him up the rear going into the very tight Vale corner, and he went off across the grass there. So that'll give him a lot more work to do from now on.
So, well, predictably enough, there's the long hanger straight and a couple of other very fast corners here at Silverstone to sort themselves out. The camera's following Eric K-Roll, but there's a massive bundle behind. The first 5 or 6 cars are fairly orderly, but then there is a group of 5 or 6 featuring Fabrice Valfish, Matt Neal, Gabriele Tarquini as well. Just at the top of the picture, you don't see it there, but they are having a huge dust-up. It's the number 9 Conrero Alfa, in fact, in second place. That's Lancialotti under pressure. Don't follow the leader who's out on his own. Follow the battle for second place. Nicola Larini's right with him. Gabriele Tarquini there in third place. I am going to turn, take a gun in a minute and go and shoot our camera director if he doesn't follow the battle. Here we go. So Lancialotti, the white car. Nicola Larini unable to find a way past him in 3 corners, and that's a testament to the fact that Lancialotti is really holding on strongly. Larini not going to take any chances on non-finishing this race, I fancy, David. Even if he gets passed by Tarquini, he still needs to rack up more points, and perhaps that little bit of discretion on the part of Alan might help Tarquini as they come to the end of the hanger straight. Down into Stowe they will go, and Larini on board now, riding with him. David, he's got to find a way past Toccacello. We're now getting up to 2/3 of a lap. He's going to look down the inside at the Vale. This is where the Audi punted off Matt Neal, and he makes contact.
No, just doesn't quite make it. He knows he's got to keep his car in one piece. He knows he needs to finish this race. He came into this weekend with a 100-point lead over Tarquini, and all he needs to do is finish right behind him, or finish, and he will score points. So Legend Tarquini passed there, a little bit upset. You can see him waving his hand around, but nonetheless, I know that he will think, I want these points. I don't want to be in a gravel trap. I don't want him not to finish. Even if Tarquini finishes first and he finishes second, Larini will be very happy with that, because he will still have an awful lot more points than what Tarquini will, and he'll have to win almost every single race with Larini second, and still I think that he may not quite manage to win a championship like that. So Larini knows that he needs to score as many points as possible. He really is struggling to get past his Conrero team in front of us here with the white Alfa there. He should have been passed long before now. Here we go. He should be up the inside. Oh, there we are. That's how to do it. Give him a bit of a push out of the way. If at first you don't succeed, just shove him out of the way. It'll work that way.
Well, Lancialotti has a little bobble as he comes through Luffield, and Larini takes advantage, just gives him that extra little helping hand. Larini in third place now, ahead of Lancialotti. And, ooh, chops right back in front of Giovanardi. Gio goes to the inside. Lancialotti all at 6s and 7s there. He was way, way offline. Look how much he's dropped there coming through Copse by being completely on the wrong line. Meanwhile, finally Eric K-Roll has been caught, and this is, well, it's taken a long while for them to catch the leader. K-Roll got a blinding start. He was actually in 5th place on the starting grid, and he just shot through the first 2 rows, threaded his way through long before they got to Copse. Now, Tarquini's superior straight line advantage will show. The hanger straight, well, there's nothing you need on the hanger straight but a good exit from Beckett and plenty of grunt.
And now you can see exactly what happened with the Honda. He was able to pull out and go away. And here, sitting on the side of the road, we see the number 7 Audi. That's the Colgiaggio Audi. That was the one that was in for an engine change this morning. Didn't actually make it to the start of the first race. Got it to the start of the second race, but obviously done something not quite right there. It hasn't lasted very long. So that looks like him out of the race already. But now we can see the 2 Alfa Romeos here, Larini and Giovanardi, fighting here for 3rd and 4th. Pretty shortly that will be 2nd and 3rd once they can get past K-Roll with the BMW. K-Roll always does very well in these second races. He tends to not do very well in the first one, start towards the front of the second one, and then he'll get himself into a good finishing position.
As David falls over in the commentary booth, it falls apart. We watch a replay there of Gabriele Tarquini taking that position earlier on from Nicola Larini. Now on board with Nicola Larini, right behind Eric Cairol. This is for second place and a chance to stay with Tarquini, but I think that's perhaps ambitious. Oh, look at this! Inside Larini, Giovanardi. Now, we couldn't see that from the onboard, but Gio taps him. Oh, David, that's the sort of stuff that'll get the Honda team rubbing their hands with anticipated glee.
They will love that. They just need these two Alphas not to finish, and if these two guys keep fighting like this, then there is that possibility. You can see them side by side going into Copse the first corner, but Larini's decided to give way and let his teammate Giovanardi through. Giovanardi, of course, doesn't have quite the same points. He was some 50 points down at the beginning of this weekend. So again, Larini must be thinking more about finishing this race and collecting those points.
He certainly is. Let's Giovanardi go, but he's still there in fourth. On board with Nicola Larini, Fabrizio Giovanardi, his teammate, has eased his way past. If Rubbing's racing, then it was a racing move. Now Giovanardi queuing up behind the multicolour car of Eric Cairol, but he's leaving it very late as he goes into Stowe. And he gets the move put to bed. Cairol just couldn't argue with that. I think perhaps the age of the BMW now starting to show against what looked like a superior chassis from Alfa Romeo. Giovanardi certainly has plenty of talent. Cairol's not without his, but you wouldn't want to say necessarily that he was at ex-Grand Prix driver standard, and that's the kind of company he's mixing in now, because these front three runners have all been Grand Prix standard drivers. Nicola Larini, of course, has driven for many Grand Prix teams. Gabriele Tarquini even had his shout in the top flight of single-seaters. These guys now convincing and committed saloon car drivers, and a thumbs up there, little wave, thank you to Eric Cairol, because I think Larini realised that he put himself in a position where Cairol could easily have tapped him out as they went into Abbey. If Cairol had just been a touch more cynical, then Larini would have been spinning off into the grass and back down out of the top half dozen, but as it is, he scores third place. So Tarquini, Giovanardi, now Larini in third, with Cairol still right with him. The fact that Cairol didn't knock him off doesn't mean that he's given up on a place on the podium, David. And at the moment, he looks as though he's got a reasonable chance. We'll have to see what Larini can do in terms of pace on the next lap.
Yeah, I'm sure Cairol's just sitting there right behind him now, and he'll just sit there and wait for a mistake. If there's a mistake, he'll pick it up. But just a little bit further back now in sixth place, you see Matt Neal. He's come back from that tap earlier on when he was taken across the grass. So he's now got going and he's coming back up. We can only hope that the radiator hasn't filled too much of the grass as he shot across there, because the grass was obviously cut this week here at Silverstone, and while it was cut, it was left lying there and wasn't sort of cleaned up. And I've noticed from earlier on today that when a car goes off across there in warm-up this morning, they do pick up a lot of grass up into the radiator, so we can just hope that hasn't happened to him, and he can get a little bit further up than his sixth position he is at the moment.
Well, here's his chance down the hanger straight behind the white Alpha of Lancialotti is Matt Neal right behind him. Oh, that's super late. In fact, that's so late going into Stowe, they weren't even going into Stowe, they were in Stowe corner. So Neal dives into fifth place as they come through the Vale. And now his next target in the remaining, well, he's got plenty of laps actually. He's got a long chance here. This is a 10-lapper at Silverstone. They are on lap 5 at the moment. Halfway through, he's back up to fifth place. His next target, Eric Cairol, is about a second up the road. And Matt Neal already, look how much he's distanced himself from Lancialotti.
Matt Neal's going very well indeed. In actual fact, his quickest lap was only 1/10 of a second on the last lap, slower than what Gabriele Tarquini was out front. And that was including passing a car. So he really is switched on now. He's obviously got wound up after that initial tap round at Vale on the first lap, so he's in there trying to make places. So his now target is to get the Cairol BMW, and after that I'm sure he wants to catch and pass the two Alphas. He won't give up until he gets to them. I'm sure that will be a possibility, maybe by lap 10, but he'll be trying to do that.
Well, here he is now closing on the BMW. And let's take a look as they come across the line at their lap times. That will give us some indication of their speed. Eric Cairol, 1:59.1. Matt Neal, 1:57.0. So he's 2 seconds a lap quicker, and that's all too evident there, isn't it? On board now with the Team Dynamics driver. And let me tell you, Matt Neal, 6'7" of him. If he tells you he's 6'6", I wouldn't believe it, because I think I am, and he's certainly taller than me. sitting in that car yesterday with your bottom on the floor pan, literally about 2 inches off the ground. Your head is only just above the level of the door, and actually this very low camera view is very, very accurate indeed. You can just see over the steering wheel at his kind of height as he comes down the hanger straight, makes the move on K-Roll, and right behind him Fabrice Valfish replicating that on Lancialotti. So Valfish goes up to 7th place, 6th place. Matt Neal goes up to 4th place. So 2 changes there, identical moves by those 2 drivers. And Valfish, who started on the penultimate row of the grid with Matt Neal, had a dreadful getaway, got bottled up at the first corner and was stone last around most of the first lap. Now really trying to wind on the speed, because he had a good first race, finished in a strong 4th place, undoubtedly his best Super Touring race to date. And having raced Formula 3000 here for the last 3 years, he knows this circuit very well. Indeed, he knew Magny-Cours pretty well, but not in the rain. So there is Eric K-Roll now down to 5th place rather. Matt Neal ahead of him in 4th place. And the mid-race distance just passed. Going on to finish lap 6 now. Gabriele Tarquini still leading. He was leading by 3.1 seconds from Fabrizio Giovanardi. And the Asport team, well, holding their own counsel at the moment. Still half the race to go. Looks as though there's not much out there for Gabriele to tangle with, but I wouldn't want to put the curse of the commentator on him. 3.01 as opposed to 3.104 from the previous lap. So, well, hundreds is the differences between Tarquini and Giovanardi's times at the moment. Larini pretty much staying there as well. 3.2 behind Giovanardi. Matt Neal in 4th. And Valfish now starting to close on Eric K-Roll for 5th place. We'll be back with more action from Silverstone in a moment. Eurosport Live at Silverstone, race 8 in the FIA Super Touring Championship, the 4th of the double-header race weekends for the FIA drivers. Gabriele Tarquini looking at his first double-header winning weekend. He's won a race at... well, whenever he's won, he's either won or crashed. In fact, Gabriele Tarquini, his progress so far this season, 3 times a winner, 3 times failing to finish the race. And he's out front here at Silverstone, won the first race. Fabrizio Giovanardi, after 7 laps, is 3 seconds behind him still. 3.104 goes down to 3.005 as the gap, but it is just hundreds of seconds and nothing too much to worry about. Fabrice Valfish, though, coming right across the start-finish line, right behind Eric K-Roll, and he looks like he's going to make that move for 5th place. Cameraman, or the director, hasn't picked that up. We're looking instead at Nicola Larini in 3rd place, and he is lapping just a couple of hundredths of a second off the pace of Tarquini and Giovanardi. They're both at, well, all 3 of them doing 1:57.0, 1:57.1, and there you see Valfish has now passed Eric K-Roll. So our director showing us another shot of the BMW. And when I tell you that K-Roll is French, have a guess at the nationality of the crew. So K-Roll now down to 6th place behind Fabrice Valfish. And the next car you can see lining up the Lancialotti Alfa is Sandro Sardelli in his Nissan. Now, we didn't see him in the first race, or very much of him. This is Sardelli's new look to the car, with very much a BTCC style Nissan Primera colour scheme on it, with that sort of white background and the little Primera Nissan Racing helmet logo there, which is he's got his own sponsor's name incorporated into. And again, as we pointed out yesterday, some of the cars in the race as well as qualifying, using those flat aerodynamic wind-cheating discs on the rear wheels, because here on the Grand Prix circuit at Silverstone you really don't need much in the way of rear braking, and to stop the rear wheels muddying up the airflow and disturbing the aerodynamics, causing a bit more drag, those flat discs being used on a lot of the rear wheels of the cars here. So, same for the number 4 car of Gabriele Tarquini as he comes round to complete his 8th lap of 10. Those flat spinners on the rear wheels stops the air getting muddied up and just helps give you a couple of extra kilometers an hour, perhaps, maybe even not that much, but it's all those tiny little touches added together that go together in the Honda Accord to make it such a rocket sledge. There is the Yasport Honda team on the TV watching their men. Tarquini in 1st place at the moment, and Fabrice Valfish now having fought his way up after a poor start to 5th. Giovanardi and Larini, David, in the 2 Alphas first. First Giovanardi, then Larini. They're 2nd and 3rd at the moment, unable to make much of an inroad into Gabriele Tarquini's lead. When are they going to start thinking, well, I'll just worry about my teammate and the championship?
I think they've that's gone through their mind already. They're out there, they're in second and third, they'll be quite happy to sit where they are. Larini will be looking in his mirror to see that he can find Matt Neal coming towards him. They've only got a couple of laps to go, and the last thing he wants to do is get caught up with Matt Neal on the last lap, maybe get into a bit of a fight where he ends up off the circuit. So that's one thing he'll be worrying about. Giovanardi's got no worries at all. He'll just sit there and reel off the last couple of laps in good style. Here we can see Carroll racing with Sardelli. Sardelli always makes pretty poor starts on these races and then starts to fight his way through afterwards. He's got exactly the same car as Matt Neal, so we would expect that car to go extremely well. Matt's now in fourth position, and that's Sardelli just moving up into sixth. So he's making the best use of the power in that car there to get himself up. He's the leading privateer at the moment, so he's keeps scoring more and more points for that privateer championship, and that I know is his target for this year, is to win that privateer championship and not to win the races overall. Certainly he's making life difficult for himself at the beginning of the races, but using the car and its ability to sort it out afterwards.
Maybe he needs to go to an airfield with Matt Neal, learn a bit about setup and a lot about starting these Super Touring Primeras. Certainly Matt Neal, a lot of you might think, well, surely Matt Neal's the privateer, he's not anything like a factory entry, and indeed you're right. But of course, don't forget, he didn't start the championship intending to do all of the championship, and I would assume therefore is probably not registered as one of the privateers. He's certainly not shown as a privateer on our entry. So although Matt Neal is in effect the leading privateer here, Sardelli is the man who's scoring those points, and he's now, as we saw, moved ahead of Eric Carroll. Then Gianluca De Lorenzi has also moved ahead of Lanciolotti. Indeed, Lanciolotti might need to worry about Toccacello, his teammates. Well, 7.7 seconds ahead with 1 lap to go. Maybe not. So Tarquini then, on to lap 10. White flag lap if they existed in Britain, but they don't, and anywhere in Europe. So it is the final lap, though, for Tarquini. 2.2 ahead of Giovanardi, who in turn is 3.3 ahead of Larini, who in turn is 1.1 ahead of Matt Neal. So in fact Larini has dropped a second on that previous lap. And to give you an idea, Tarquini did a 1:57.3, Larini a 1:57.6, but Giovanardi a 1:56.8. So Giovanardi rattling in a final getaway from Larini lap on lap 9. Matt Neal a 1:56.7, pretty much the same pace as Larini, and not too shy of Tarquini's pace. Giovanardi putting in that fast lap. In fact, Giovanardi has the fastest lap of the race at the moment, 1:56.4. So his last lap was only a couple of tenths away from that. Carroll now under pressure for that privateer position, which will be second and third privateer. We're looking at the 2 BMWs here of Carroll and the orange and white car of Gianluca De Lorenzi. De Lorenzi, like Carroll and Sardelli, who is now ahead of them in that Nissan Primera, is fighting for those privateers' points. Tarquini then coming out of Luffield for the final time. He's got Giovanardi behind him, but nowhere near close enough behind him, and it will be victory number 2 at Silverstone for Gabriele Tarquini. He was thrilled to win race 1, and he will be just as delighted to have won race 2, and that really helps him get his championship back on track. He needed the confidence of that. He needed to boost his morale with a couple of wins. He knew the Honda was fast, he knew he was fast too, and David, finally he's managed to have 2 clean races in a row, and it just shows that he's got the ability. He hadn't forgotten how to drive in the first 3 races.
Yes, he's always had that ability. He's always been able to do it, but he's just had those non-finishes. He's the first person to win 2 races in one weekend, scoring a maximum of 80 points. Now, in my quick working out as I'm standing here, I now reckon that he will have moved up to 4th in the championship after this race that we've just watched this very minute. We've got Larini still in the lead with 280, Giovanardi with 240, we've got an Audi Massimo Pigoli still with 179, and then right behind that, no, my figures are wrong because I've added to the wrong person. If I add 40 to 152, I've got 192.
He's actually third place.
He's actually in 3rd place now.
Well, now that is still a big vault up from 3rd place to the lead. As you say, he'll have 190 compared to 280 for Nicola Larini. So he's only got 2/3 of Larini's points, but if he can get a couple of strong warm weekends like this, or a couple of strong weekends like this, then he will start to make inroads into the Alpha Pair's lead. So there is confirmation of the result. Then Matt Neal in 4th place as... no, he was in 3rd place in race 1, 4th place here in race 2. And Fabrice Walfisch in 5th place. Another strong showing for the Honda Accord. Sandro Sardelli. David, I would think that if Matt can stay in the championship, Sardelli's car and overall performance really ought to be raised a notch, because I think they will learn, if they can, quite a lot from the Team Dynamics crew. They really know that Nissan very well. Matt knows how to race it, he knows how to set it up. I'd be very surprised if Sardelli doesn't want to use some of that knowledge to his benefit.
I'm sure they will, if they can just get themselves all sorted out so they're all working together, and then that will move the other Nissan up there. And it is so much easier when you've got 2 cars or 2 cars from the same manufacturer working together. But when you've got 2 Alfa Romeos and 1 Honda up there, then the Honda does suffer. So if you can get the 2 Nissans working together, 2 of them up there together, then I'm sure they can make inroads into that Honda Alfa Romeo domination that we've got at the front of the grid at the moment.
Well, Matt Neal, obviously with no Privateers Championship points to chase, won't take any away from anybody, but, well, Sardelli could certainly do a lot worse than talking to the Team Dynamics crew and finding out a bit more about his car than he knows at the moment, particularly about how to use the mountains of data that come out of Super Tourers now, because that's certainly something that Matt has got plenty of experience in. So Tarquini then, double race winner, the first man to win 2 races on the same weekend. Nicola Laurini's won back-to-back races, but they were at consecutive race meetings. Bravo! I think that pretty much sums it up for the Jasport Honda team. A winning weekend for Jasport and for Gabriele Tarquini, and Spider-Man couldn't be happier with himself. Former British Touring Car Championship winner, of course, and a man who has not raced that frequently in Super Tourers on the Grand Prix circuit at Silverstone. It's been a long time since the Super Tourers supported a British Grand Prix, but a man who knows all about winning.
Gabriele, many congratulations. You're the first racer to win both STC races on the same day this season. A fantastic first couple of laps for you, and then again it didn't look as though you had any troubles after that.
Yeah, it's sure that it's my first double, but it's the first time that I reached the finish twice, so it's good for the optimistic for the future. My car was always in a different track, very competitive, so I'm still optimistic to reach the leader, he's sure.
Thank you, Gabriele.
Well, Gabriele has talked it up over the last couple of weekends where he's had these disappointments. You know, it's a long season, we've got to keep it going and so on. But again, as he said, it's the first time that crash or win has been replaced by win and win for Tarquini, and that may well give him that little extra boost he needs. But Giovanardi and Larini still in charge of the championship with the Alfa Romeos, and Tarquini the man on a mission, chasing them hard. Gabriele Tarquini, the winner of both races in a Super Racing Weekend Super Touring race for the first time. Super Touring meeting, and, well, just in dominant form here. I wonder what the Alfa Romeo drivers thought about it.
Fabrizio, congratulations. Excuse me. Congratulations, another second place. It just seemed as though Gabriele was just a little bit too quick in both races today.
Yes, I think he was really quick in the start, in the opposite to me, and was really fast the 3-4 laps. In the end, I think he has a little bit problem, but was too much gap to gain. It's okay like this.
Thank you, Fabrizio.
Bye. Well, certainly Tarquini was dropping a tenth or two to the Alphas in the closing stages. Whether that was too much of a problem or whether that was just knowing that he'd pretty much got it tied up, we'll have to find out later. Read the comics for that later in the week, and I'm sure they'll have the full scoop from Gabriele. But for Nicola Larini, well, championship still looking strong.
Nicola, considering the problems that you had in qualifying, you must be pleased a fifth and a third. You're still leading the championship.
I'm happy about the last result. Unfortunately, I started in last row with the first race because I lost the qualifying session yesterday for gearbox problems. And in any case, I have I contain my leadership. I lost not so much point in compared to my teammate Giovanardi. I'm quite happy, not so happy, but I would like to win. I prefer to win, not like fifth or fourth.
Thank you, Nicola.
Well, Larini, a true racer there. Of course, he prefers to win, no question about it. But in the end, well, a half smile maybe. At least he's, as he says, limited the damage with regards to Giovanardi. 40 points between them. Pajoli 198, Tarquini 192. So Tarquini just a fraction shy of fourth place, according to the calculators. Well, we'll take advice on that later. David's maths seem to work to me as well. I'm certainly not going to go on to my mental arithmetic to try and sort that sort of stuff out. Tardelli faring very well indeed. The top privateer in 7th place at the moment. And a good race weekend for him. The top privateer here in the 2nd Super Touring race at Silverstone. Onto the podium then, the Honda driver, front and centre, and on the left-hand side, Fabrizio Giovanardi, on the right, Nicola Larini. Strains of the Italian national anthem ringing out across sunny Silverstone. All three drivers on the podium, Italian of course, and the tricolori waving in the grandstand in front of our commentary box window. So they've got some fervent support here in Britain as well, rising to their feet to support the drivers as they receive their trophies from the chairman of Eurosport, who himself is Italian as well. So a very happy moment for him, be able to congratulate them in his native tongue. So congratulations indeed to Nicola Larini and David. Really what he needed here at Silverstone to right the wrongs of the first 3 rounds of the season.
Yeah, Gabrielli's just had those things that have gone wrong for him. One of them totally his own fault, and the other 2 he got involved in accidents with other people. So he's a big smile on his face and he's very happy now. He's got rid of that problem that he had of arriving at the race meetings and only finishing 1 of the 2 races. So yes, he's now a very happy man indeed today. I spoke to him earlier today and he was looking forward to these races. He said it was nice to have a sunshine that he was racing in instead of racing in the wet and damp that they've done so far in the first 3 races this year, first 3 meetings. So he's going to go away tonight. I'm sure he's going to be extremely happy.
Well, just before